Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today as we launch the Spring 2021 webinar series on skills to succeed in the new work environment. 2020 has been a year to remember for all of us, and it has presented us with a new set of challenges to overcome. We at the Training and Development Solutions by Howard Community College are thrilled that you've joined us as we continue this series, focusing on timely topics for the business community. Next slide. Mina Wu is the Associate Vice President of Continuing Education and Workforce Development at Howard Community College. Mina couldn't join us here today, and I have the pleasure of introducing today's webinar. Next slide. Hello and welcome. I'm Kristen Navarro, Senior Director of the Workforce Development and Training area at the college. That includes Training and Development Solutions, offering training designed for the business community, as well as training in a wide variety of occupational certifications, professional development, leadership, management and supervision, business, information technology, nursing and allied health, education, and apprenticeships. Next slide. I'd like to take a moment to share with you a little bit about our work. Next slide. The Division of Continuing Education and Workforce Development offers a wide array of programming, ranging from community development, personal enrichment, and workforce development. Annually, we serve more than 15,000 student enrollments in various courses offered at the college. We are here to enrich the lives of all residents in the county, as well as to provide workforce solutions for employees and businesses. Next slide. As one of our workforce solutions, Howard Community College has served the training needs of the businesses and organizations in the county and the state for over 20 years. Some of you may know us as Charles I. Ecker Business Training Center. The college announced our new name, Training and Development Solutions by Howard Community College, late last year. This was done to better convey the robust, comprehensive nature of the services we provide for our region's business community, including entrepreneurs, business owners, nonprofit organizations, government agencies, and professionals who aspire to grow. We're excited to offer this webinar series to help us launch the new name and to showcase the types and quality of training we can provide in a variety of formats, online, in person, or a combination to meet your needs. We look forward to continuing our engagement with you. And with that, I'd like to introduce Sherry Hornak to say a few words and introduce our speaker.
Hi, I'm Sherry Hornak. I've been working at Howard Community College's Division of Continuing Education since 1998. As the Director of Customized Training, I am responsible for providing performance improvement solutions to our clients. Next slide. Training and Development Solutions provides training, coaching, facilitation, and other performance improvement solutions to local businesses and organizations, as well as local, state, and federal government. Training and Development Solutions is located on the first floor of Howard County's new Maryland Innovation Center on Columbia Gateway Drive in Columbia. Next slide. TDS provides customized solutions to the training needs of our clients in a variety of topics, as you can see here on the slide. All of our courses are interactive, incorporating adult learning principles, and are robust with practical activities, training that is directly and immediately applicable to the participant's workplace. We will even incorporate your company's relevant examples into the scenarios, role plays, and case studies. All TDS trainers are selected for their subject matter expertise and their ability to share their practical knowledge in the classroom. Many have advanced degrees as well as prestigious local, regional, and national business experience. TDS trainers provide their course participants with information that has practical, real-world applications. As a result, These individuals consistently receive top marks from participants for their preparation, knowledge, and teaching ability. Next slide. Our training services pre-pandemic were mostly face-to-face classroom-based trainings. After the pandemic hit, we knew we had to offer our training services virtually. The trainers have converted all our classroom-based training into training suitable for the online environment. We also now have a partnership with a vendor of online self-paced courses for individuals who want to train at their own pace. Once COVID restrictions are lifted, we will return to offering training in our classrooms at Gateway. Next slide. The topic of today's webinar is inclusion. I will now introduce today's presenter. Next slide. James Parker is an adjunct faculty member at Howard Community College with over 20 years experience in diversity and inclusion, equal employment opportunity, and conflict resolution. He has written, developed, and delivered training in these areas for senior leadership, management, and staff. Utilizing his diverse background in the corporate, retail, hospitality, nonprofit, research and development, and federal government sectors, Mr. Parker has produced positive and sustained results in the workplace. By engaging the spectrum from frontline workers to senior management, he has achieved organizational goals and improved workplaces by leveraging the principles of respect, effective communication, and inclusion. And with that, I turn the presentation over to James.
Thank you, Sherry, and good afternoon, everyone. As I mentioned earlier, as Sherry mentioned rather, my name is James Parker, and I'm really excited to be a part of this webinar series. I'm going to share some information with you. I'll share my screen, and then hopefully what we can do is share information together. I'm going to share some thoughts with you, and then hopefully what we can also do is through the chat and through the Q&A, if you'd be willing to share some information with me as well. Here's kind of the agenda, the roadmap that I think we can follow in our discussion. We'll start off by talking about diversity and inclusion. Then we'll talk about, what does success mean and how do we achieve success through diversity and inclusion? We'll take a little deeper dive into awareness, and we'll talk about implicit biases and microaggressions. And then we'll segue into, so what is that atmosphere that you can create in your organization, an atmosphere for inclusion? And then we'll finish up with why inclusion matters. Why is this an important topic for us to discuss in the business realm? And then finally, if you have any questions and answers, we'd be happy to entertain them as well. So as we move forward, the first thing I'd like to do, and hopefully if you can access your chat, I'd love to hear from you. What is a word that comes to your mind when you think of diversity? When somebody mentions the word diversity to you, what's one of the first things that comes to your mind at that time? Yeah, differences, absolutely. Differences are a common part of diversity, and that's something that we always think about. How are we different, and how do we take those differences and leverage them for the organization? Great. Any other thoughts? Yeah, differences, and so that's interesting. So differences coming together to make a whole, and so I like that thought, Patricia, because what you're saying, what I think I hear you saying is that we can have differences, but if we're really going to make the best use of those differences, then we bring it together, right? And then I also see that we have, and Prab has the thought of variety, right? So yes, it's differences, but what's exciting about diversity and inclusion, it is the variety of skills, it's a variety of talents, it's a variety of backgrounds that people bring to the table, and that's what makes it so exciting, and that's what adds to the creativity and the innovation of a business. So if those are the words that come to mind when you think of diversity, I'm curious, if we talk about inclusion, are there any different words that come to your mind when we think of inclusion? And I'll go ahead and take included off the table. So other than included, are there any other words that come to mind when you think about inclusion? What makes you think inclusion? Uh, that we have diversity as the differences and the variety that we bring to the table. Okay, so I see embracing it, right? I see everyone matters. Absolutely. Now this is interesting. Jamie says justice, right? And I think if we are going to be inclusive, there is a level of fairness. There's fairness. There's equity that is absolutely a part of inclusion. So I think that's important as well. And then I also see a comment about welcome participation. And I think that phrase welcome is really important because you can have diversity, right? And when we think about moving from diversity to inclusion, the diversity is really the mix, right? As you said, it's the differences, it's the variety, it's all the backgrounds that we bring to the table. When we're speaking of a diverse population, that's the mix. But then when we start to think about inclusion, it's not just a mix, but it's the engagement. How do we take all of these different backgrounds, these different experiences and skills, and bring them together in order to make an organization successful? Uh, in a diverse background, we appreciate the differences that we bring to the table, but an inclusive background, an inclusive environment really takes it to the next step. An inclusive environment talks about, how do we leverage these talents? So you can have talent, but whether you leverage it, that's a different story. And in an inclusive environment, we're really looking forward to leveraging the talents, the different talents, the variety of talents that we have. In a diverse workforce, we certainly recognize the benefit of an equal opportunity to succeed. And I'm going back to Jamie's statement about justice, right? So we recognize that justice and equity and fair treatment and equal opportunity is important. But in an inclusive environment, we understand that in order to provide the maximum opportunity for the organization to be successful, we can't just recognize it, we do have to embrace it. That has to be a part of who we are. So you can have diversity, but if we're going to have an inclusive environment, it has to be a part of who we are. It has to be a part of our organizational DNA. So if we're going to talk about success, right? Because if we're talking in business terms, what's in it for the organization to embrace diversity and carry it through to inclusion? And I just picked a couple things that I'd share with you. When you look at return on equity, if you take the net income of an organization and divide it by the shareholders' equity, what we found was that the top quartile of executive board diversity. The executive boards that were the most diverse, they were, 16%, right? 16%, double of the return on equity of the organizations that were in the bottom quartile that did not have as diverse a board. And so we can see right there that the board diversity really did have an impact on the success of these organizations. One of the other things that I read in Forbes was the fact that if we're going to foster innovation and creativity, and innovation are key drivers to the success of an organization. If we're going to foster innovation, then yes, diversity is one of those key drivers, and it's not just for the folks that are working for you right now. Diversity, inclusion is an important part of being able to attract and to keep the best talent that's available out there. When you think of the individuals who have are really well educated, highly skilled, bring a lot to the table, then those are the individuals that have choices. And generally, they want to choose a place where their creativity, where their innovation can be utilized, and where they feel comfortable. Going back to a word that was in the chat, where they feel welcome in the work environment. And we can find this out in Diversity Inc. magazine. They did a study, and when they talked about retention, just a couple of things that I'd share with you, and that is that highly engaged employees were 87% more likely to stay, less likely to leave your organization because they're highly engaged. And if we're talking about success, let's talk about productivity. Engaged employees were 43% more productive than employees who were not engaged. So listen, we know that when someone's working, you're going to pay them. They're going to get a check every 2 weeks. But wouldn't it be nice to have maximum productivity? Wouldn't it be nice for them to be fully engaged and for them, if someone offers them another job where they say, nah, I'm good, I'm staying where I am because I see that my talent, my value, it matters here. So I guess I want to ask another question because if we can see that success is important, if we can agree that diversity and inclusion are important to an organization, then I guess the question is, why is it that inclusion is sometimes difficult to achieve? What are your experiences? What are your thoughts on that? Why is it that inclusion is sometimes difficult to achieve? I'd love to see your thoughts in the chat. Corporate culture doesn't allow it. Absolutely. Prejudice, right? Those are absolute barriers, right? When we have a prejudice environment, then that is contrary to equal opportunity, and we'll talk about biases a little bit later, but that also creates an environment where we're not really embracing everything that people bring to the table. Unconscious bias, yes. Misconceptions about what people's skills are. Absolutely. So those biases and those misconceptions, they really are a key part of one of the reasons why it's difficult to achieve diversity. And just going back to corporate culture for a moment, you find many organizations that say, "Oh yeah, we want to be diverse. Yeah, we want to be inclusive." But what are our practices, right? What are our hiring practices? What kind of atmosphere do we create? And are we open to listening to people in the work environment? Because at the end of the day, those are the things that make a difference as to whether or not you have created an inclusive culture. And so I appreciate those thoughts. And one of the things that popped up in the chat, I do want to take just a quick look at, and that is unconscious bias, right? Some people call it unconscious bias. Some people call it implicit bias. Some people call it implicit association. When we associate our past experiences with what's happening to us right now, because the brain likes to be comfortable. The brain likes to be in familiar territory. And so what the brain does, and we don't have to ask it to do this, what the brain does is whenever we're in unfamiliar territory, the brain is automatically going to try to find something that looks like that feels like something that's happened in the past so that it can be more comfortable right now. That's helpful in some situations. If you're at a zoo and there's a tiger in the cage, your brain says it's fine. Tiger's in the cage, right? I'm enjoying my time at the zoo. But if you happen to be walking down Columbia Gateway Drive and there's a tiger coming towards you, your brain says, this is different. This is not comfortable, right? So having certain biases that the brain uses is really important, right? It's important for survival. The problem, though, when we deal with people is that when we deal with people, if we take those misconceptions, right, and if we take those biases and if we apply them to people, then sometimes we'll miss the best of what individuals bring to the table. So at Ohio State, here's just a working definition, and certainly there are many, but at Ohio State, they refer to implicit bias as the attitudes or stereotypes that affect our understanding, our actions, and our decisions in an unconscious manner. So we're not thinking about it, but it's happening all the time. The vast majority of the decisions that we make, they're made unconsciously. So even when we think we're making a decision, very often the brain is just reverting back to what's happened in the past. So when we think about these implicit biases, there are a few things that I would certainly share. Number one, I hope we can agree that everybody has biases. We may have different biases, but we all have them, right? And not only do we have them, but our biases don't always line up with our declared beliefs. Like, for instance, you may have a guy that says, I'm really chivalrous. And so what I'm going to do, and let's just take this out for a spin for a second. What I'm going to do, I have a project. It's going to take long hours, and it may take weekend work. And so I'm only going to offer this to the guys on my team because I understand that the ladies on the team, they have family to take care of, they may have children to take care of, and so because I'm so chivalrous, because I care so much, I'm not really going to offer it to them. Now I may think that I'm being kind, but actually I'm being discriminatory. Actually, what I'm doing is I'm allowing my bias to get in the way in a few ways. Because number one, I may have ladies that work on my team who are happy to work the extra hours, who want to be in that position where they can make an impact on a project that's going to have a positive impact on their future. The other thing I'm also doing is I'm assuming that the guys don't have responsibilities. There may be a single father on my team who has to pick up his child by 6 o'clock, and if he doesn't pick his daughter up by 6 o'clock, there are those wonderful late fees that come along with childcare. So in my mind, I'm thinking one thing. I'm believing that I am showing, how open I am to taking care of the women on my team, but in actuality, my biases are getting in the way of my team being fully engaged. And I see the comment here, right? In order to create an inclusive environment, you should offer childcare. That helps that helps the culture. And absolutely, so there are certain benefits that organizations offer to say, listen, we want you to be able to be fully engaged while you're here, and so much so that we'll create benefits that will allow you to bring your whole self to work. And so thank you, Jackie. Yeah, that's an example that's actually not made up. I've experienced that in the past in dealing with certain organizations. So our biases may not line up with our declared beliefs. And the other thing that I hope we can understand and just really kind of be comfortable with for a second is that we all generally favor our in group, whatever our in group is. And so the natural in group, sometimes we say, well, our in group is, men tend to hang out with men and women tend to hang out with women, or by race, or individuals that may have a disability, or whatever the case may be, that's our in group. But it's not just there. We said that diversity, that's the variety of who we are. Sometimes the in group is based on skill set. Sometimes the in group is that folks that are that are from an HR background, and I'll use me as an example. I'm not all that comfortable in the technical environment. I've gotten a little better during COVID, by necessity. But I'm not the guy who's going to walk up to an IT conversation and just jump in the middle of it because I don't feel comfortable there. But so the thing is that I don't feel like that's my in group. I don't have anything against folks that are IT. I appreciate everything they bring to the table, but we all have certain places where we're comfortable. So let's just agree on the fact that even people who say that they like change, they are individuals. Sometimes when we say we like change, what we really mean is I like the change that I like, right? So if it's change that I want, then that's something I'm willing to embrace. But we all generally favor our in group. And think about this: when we think about the United States of America specifically, 3/4 of folks in America grow up in a neighborhood that is folks like them, right? And whatever like them is. And so even if we're talking about racial demographics, think about the fact that if 3/4 of America grows up in a neighborhood where people look like them, then for many people, their first exposure to real, to real diversity may be when they go to college, or when they join the military, or they marry into a family that's more diverse. So I think we kind of got to give ourselves a little bit of a break here and understand that the fact that we generally favor our in group, that's somewhat natural. However, biases can gradually be unlearned, and that's basically done by experience. The more experiences that we have, the more we appreciate what other people bring to the table, the more differences that we're able to think about and say, yeah, I understand where you're coming from. That experience is different than mine, but as I hear you say it, I feel it. I understand it, and I may not have had the same experience, but I have a certain level of empathy because of what I've heard. That's how you take your diversity and you begin to create an inclusive work environment. Now, one of the things that studies have shown is that it's not just the overt racism, it's not overt discrimination, it's not overt sexism. Most people are smart enough not to just say certain things out loud. But there are what we call microaggressions, and Dr. Mary Rowe out of MIT, she's the one that coined this phrase. And here's what Dr. Rowe said when she was explaining microaggressions. Dr. Rose said that they're small, kind of hard to prove events or small things. And often the people that are doing them, it's not intentional. It just kind of happens. And even to the point where the perpetrator, the person that's doing it, they don't even recognize that it's happening. It's just that small. That's why it's a microaggression. But what we do know is that it happens when people are perceived to be different, when people are different in a certain environment, when people are different in a certain space. That's when microaggressions happen. Now, Bruce Stewart used to be the director of diversity inclusion at OPM, and Bruce had pulled together a laundry list in his new IQ curriculum. He had pulled together a laundry list of microaggressions. I pulled out just 4 here to share with you, and I'm interested to see if you have others that you've seen or experienced even. One microaggression: cutting down ideas before they are entertained. Now, Sherry shared with me some of my background, and my experience. I've spent most of my career in male-dominated industries. Interestingly enough, I've also spent most of my career reporting to women. And so I've seen from a number of different perspectives, I've seen how this happens. I've seen how in a male dominated meeting, a lady might say something, and then before she can even finish her sentence, somebody's tripping over her words. And what's even worse is when she doesn't get to finish her sentence, and then a couple of minutes later, a guy says basically the same thing that that the lady was about to say, and then all of a sudden, we've found the cure to climate change, right? And so at this point, we're high fiving each other, and the fireworks are going off. It was the exact same thing that she was saying, only we didn't give her an opportunity to finish. So sometimes cutting down people's ideas before they finish, we may not intentionally do it, but that's a microaggression. Staying on the cell phone with no explanation. Now, I certainly have been guilty of this before. I say that I'm multitasking, right? And so I've got a phone to my ear. I'm making pretend that I'm talking to this person in front of me, but in reality, I'm not giving either person my true attention. And so I'm showing both of them they don't really matter. And even the person on the phone can probably tell by my tone of voice that I'm distracted, right? And so even though I think I'm doing both of them a favor, it's a microaggression that both of them may feel. Mispronouncing or misspelling a name. Now, certainly, my name is James, so that one's kind of simple. But here's why it's important to take the time to learn someone's name. If someone gives themselves a nickname, that's cool. I mean, people do that all the time. But for me to give you a nickname just because I'm not willing to take the extra time to learn how to pronounce your name or to learn how to spell your name, then what I'm really telling you is that you don't matter enough to me in order for me to take that extra time, right? So even though I may just be looking for a shortcut, what I'm really doing is creating a microaggression. And then certainly change in volume, change in pitch, change in body posture. If I lean back like this when I'm talking to some people, but then with other people, if I'm leaning over and I'm invading their space, just that change in body posture, it can be perceived as a microaggression. So here's just a few, and I'm curious: are there any other microaggressions that you have seen or experienced in the workplace? Making assumptions about what your position is or your viewpoint based on your race or gender. Absolutely. You have the situation where someone assumes that if you are a lady or if you're a person of color, assumes that you must be the assistant. You're not the one that's in charge. I'll tell you a quick one as I'm waiting for someone else to put something in the chat. I checked into a hotel with my supervisor, and we're both there checking into our rooms, and because I was a guy, they automatically, they start directing things towards me. And here's the thing that was really bothersome, to be honest with you. It was creepy. The creepy thing is that to her, they say, okay, I see that you live on, this, I see you live on this street and everything like that. So they literally say, the guy literally says, her address. That's really creepy. He didn't do that to me, right? So that was, that's a microaggression there. When they think you don't speak the language fluently, right? Absolutely, I see that as well. Language barriers can really be challenges, and I think that we have to understand that just because English, and I'm speaking here in the United States, just because English may not be someone's first language, that is no indication of their intellect. It's no indication of their skill set. And so I'm glad someone mentioned language. See, when I was buying a car, salesman addressed all the comments to my husband, who after a while said, "You're talking to me," but my wife's buying the car. I've had that experience as well. And my wife is much more astute on financial stuff than I am. So Jackie, I definitely understand what you're saying there. But yeah, these are micro things. And again, the person, may have been doing this for so long that they're not aware of it. When you're buying a car, that's one thing, right? Because that's an isolated experience. You're going to buy a car from somebody and then you'll move on. But what about when we're at work? What about when that happens all the time? What about when you're marginalized at the at the workplace, and you begin to feel like your contributions don't matter? Yeah, tattoos and piercings too, right? And so here's where we begin to make assumptions. If someone has multiple tattoos, if someone has multiple piercings, we, again, using our implicit association, we got to fill in the blanks who this person is. But the reality is that the tattoos and piercings, they aren't the person. They may be on the person, but that's not who the person is. And I think that's another great example of both a bias and a microaggression, because there are, going back to the nonverbal communication. Sometimes there are facial expressions that we don't even know that we're giving off when we see someone who may be dressed differently than we think that they should be dressed, or someone whose appearance is different, or someone who speaks differently. So all of those things are really important, and you're spot on when we're talking about microaggressions. And so you shared what you've witnessed with micro inequities, and I say micro inequities because there are microaggressions, and those are the micro activities that are negative towards people. But then there are also micro affirmations as well. That is that if I walk into a room and I say, "Hey, how you doing, Jack? Hey, how you doing, Bobby? Hi, Jane," and then there's someone else sitting off in the corner, and I don't even recognize that person. The people that I said hi to, they may be really happy that I remember their name, right? If I'm the CEO, and they're happy that I remember their name. So what is a micro affirmation to those folks becomes a micro aggression to the other person. Because if I'm going to come into a room and I'm going to address folks, then from the standpoint of equity, it is important for me to address the whole room in one way or another, right? Because here's the impact of micro inequities, and this is from Johns Hopkins Office of Diversity and Inclusion. Here's the impact, and this is why it matters in the workplace. The impact can be, I don't feel valued, right? I don't feel welcome. I don't feel supported, that my contribution has been marginalized. And yes, even to the point where sometimes people feel like I'm invisible. And imagine this, if we're talking about the success of an organization, how much productivity is your organization getting from someone who feels invisible, from someone who feels like they don't really matter, from someone who feels like they don't care, right? And so being aware of the impact of those micro inequities, right? The welcoming, the embracing. That's how you create an inclusive work environment. And yes, it does make a difference in the success of your organization. So, if we're going to create the atmosphere for inclusion, there are a few suggestions that I would offer. One, it's always great to start with leadership. When leadership embraces inclusion, when someone in leadership is a champion for diversity and inclusion, and they make the open statement that this matters, and it's not just something that we're going to do, certain months of the year, we're going to celebrate this, we're going to have a party here, a party there. No, in everything that we do, in the drumbeat of our organization, diversity and inclusion is a part of who we are, right? Inclusion is purposeful, right? Diversity happens through our recruiting and through our retention, but inclusion is purposeful. Inclusion is something that we're always thinking about. What am I missing here? Who's not included, right? And where's that safe space? Am I creating a safe space for people to be who they are? Do I have a space where it's comfortable for folks to say, I don't know, right? If I say I don't know, does that mean, gee, where'd this guy come from? We hired him and he doesn't know, right? Are we creating a space that's safe for that? Are we creating a space where people can be their authentic selves, where if they've had a bad day, can they say it? If they're feeling vulnerable about something, can they share that and without having a negative impact on them as an individual? Quite frankly, if someone's willing to be that honest, that's the kind of person who's going to be honest about your projects. That's the kind of person who's going to be honest about your clients and your customers. That's the kind of person that you really want to be a part of your successful organization. And probably one of the key things in an inclusive work environment, quite frankly, is just listening, right? That we take the time to listen to one another. That no matter how skilled I am, I recognize that I don't know everything. And I know what I know, but I'll never really expand myself until I listen to somebody else and learn what they know. And so listening is a key component of creating the atmosphere for inclusion. And I would also mention that when we're talking about listening, let's always be aware of the introverts in the room. And I happen to be an introvert, and so I'm not generally the one that jumps up and I'm the first one in the hand up in the room. But that doesn't mean that we as introverts don't have something to offer. Some people just like to think a little bit more before they say something, and some people like to process differently. And so in an inclusive work environment, not only do we have room for extroverts, and not only do we consider their thoughts, but we've also created the space for introverts to process and to give their thoughts as well. So if we're going to have this inclusive work environment, one of the things, and I think someone mentioned this earlier, and that is that our assumptions, we have to suspend them. We've got to consciously say, am I dealing with the person in front of me, or am I dealing with someone that they remind me of? From a positive standpoint, if they remind me of somebody that I liked, then they're going to get the benefit of the doubt. However, if they remind me of somebody that I didn't like, if this reminds me of an experience that didn't go well for me, then I'm going to be wary about it. But our assumptions have to be suspended. Our assumptions about people based on gender, based on race, our assumptions about individuals with disabilities. And I will certainly tell you that in my experience over the years, if you're talking about a creative and an innovative work environment, individuals with disabilities bring such creativity and innovation to the table because that's how they've been able to be fully functional. They may have one area where they're not able, but they have so many other abilities to bring to the table, right? So if we can suspend our assumptions about individuals, then we can really embrace everything that they bring to the table. Because the key is in an atmosphere for inclusion, we want to learn, right? We want to learn. We want to have that Medici effect that Franz Johansson talked about, where even if someone's discipline is different than ours, if their experience is different than ours, if their training and education is different than ours, there may be something in there that we can utilize in order to build the success of our organization. And so we listen, we learn, and we share with one another. Because by sharing and by learning and then taking the best from everything that we bring together, by taking the best of that and moving forward, that's how diversity and inclusion really contribute to the success of an organization. So as we close, I would just say this. Why does this matter in business? It matters because everybody wants to matter. Everybody wants to matter in the workplace. And particularly if we're talking about Gen Y and Gen Z, the fact that they do work that matters, it matters to them. The fact that they are involved in something that's going to make a difference, that matters, right? So they want to matter. And if that's happening, very often we give, younger people a bad rap and we say, oh, well, they're only going to be here for a couple of years or so, and then they're going to move on to something else. But if they know that what they're doing is matters, if they know that they're making an impact, then from a retention standpoint, they'll stay with you, they'll grow with you, and they'll continue to contribute to your organization. The other thing that I think matters is that even if you're not in a leadership position, your example, it can make a difference to other people and it'll be mirrored to other people, even when it comes to basics like respect and dignity. If you can create that baseline, if you can create that foundation in your workplace, that'll be mirrored by others. And soon you'll see and you'll feel the atmosphere changing. We already established that the more people are engaged, the easier it is for them to accomplish their goals. And then finally, inclusion, it's a mindset. It doesn't always happen naturally, but once we embed it into who we are and who our organization is, that's a mindset that we adopt based on success. And once we see the success, we want more of it, and we continue to embrace that inclusion. So as we close, I do want to share a video with you. There are a number of companies out there who really pride themselves in embracing and leveraging diversity and inclusion, and Accenture happens to be one of those companies. Now, for full disclosure, my son happens to work for this company, but even before he worked for Accenture, I really had a lot of respect for their work that they've done in the diversity and inclusion field. So I want to end by sharing with you their video, Inclusion Starts with I.
Inclusion starts with I. It's the unease of walking into a meeting where no one else looks like me.
And the unease of being judged when I leave early to pick up my children.
It's the frustration when I am not asked for my opinion or talked over in meetings.
And the frustration of asserting my opinion only to be labelled aggressive or angry.
It's the annoyance when people presume I'm less committed to my family life because I am a man.
And the annoyance when people presume I am less committed to my work because I am a mother.
It's the pressure to be superhuman and not talk about how I'm really feeling.
And the pressure to fit in.
It's the anxiety of sharing my personal life because most people around me are heterosexual.
And the anxiety of how others may react to my disability.
It's the awkwardness when I get mistaken for someone else of the same ethnicity.
And the awkwardness when my client assumes that my white male colleague is in charge.
It's the strain of feeling I am expected to do more simply because I don't have children.
And the strain when conversations aren't in my first language.
It's the exasperation of being labelled entitled and lacking drive.
And the exasperation when people assume I don't have relevant skills or ambition anymore.
It's the indignation of feeling that my promotion is not celebrated as much as others.
And the indignation when you think I was promoted just because I'm a woman.
It's about the everyday. It's about the big and the small.
It's about the fact that
for every $100 a woman makes, a man makes 258. Women of colour hold 3% of C-suite positions.
7 in 10 working fathers want to work more flexibly.
Disabled people are significantly more likely to experience unfair treatment at work than non-disabled people.
Transgender people are twice as likely to be unemployed and 4 times as likely to live in poverty.
1 in 4 of us will experience a mental health issue each year.
And team performance improves by 50% when everybody feels included.
Inclusion and diversity is not just about gender, ethnicity, sexual orientation, background, disability, culture, age, mental health.
It's about you, it's about me, it's about all of us.
We are all human.
We're all unique.
And we all just want a chance.
A chance to feel valued and respected for who we are.
And for our differences to be embraced as strengths.
Inclusion promotes belonging, purpose, and well-being.
Diversity ignites creativity, problem-solving, and innovation.
It's about the type of world we want to live in and the choices we make every day.
It's the vision of a better world for our children.
And all it takes is one.
One person to care, one commitment to act.
Be the one.
Join the conversation.
Inclusion starts with I. Inclusion.
And Terry, I absolutely agree with you. That is a fantastic video. So when we're talking about diversity and inclusion, I want to end not with my words, but with the words of Mahatma Gandhi, who said each of us must be the change we want to see in the world. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, James, for that presentation. We really appreciate you coming today to share that information with us. We would now like to take questions from the audience. Please feel free to use the question and answer button to enter any questions that you may have. And if you don't have access to the Q&A button, please feel free to put it in the chat. I am seeing a couple of thank yous coming in, James, from the chat about your presentation.
I see that too, and thank you. I really enjoyed the exchange that we've had today.
Well, if we don't have any questions, I will turn it over to Sherry to close out the session.
I just wanted to thank everybody again for joining us for today's webinar. And thank you so much, James. That was an amazing presentation, very impactful, very meaningful. We, at this time, do not have any additional webinars scheduled, but that is definitely in the plans. If you are interested in getting training for your employees, please feel free to contact me at the information that's showing on this slide. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
We actually, if we have time, we have one question in the Q&A. James, if you don't mind answering it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, so what are the ways you can combat such behavior when you encounter it? I think that's a fantastic question, right? In a perfect world, it doesn't happen. But what about when it does happen? And one of the things that I always encourage people to do is to engage at the appropriate level, right? Engage at the lowest level possible. Find that opportunity to address it. So this is how when this happened, when you said this to me, this is how it made me feel. I'm not saying it's what you intended, right? We're talking about intent versus impact. I'm not saying what your intent was, but I want you to know how it impacted me. And since we're working together, since we're all, we have the common goal of success for this organization, I think it's important for me to share with you. This is how it felt. And can we talk about how we can move forward in such a way that this doesn't happen again? That does two things. Number one, it certainly lets the individual know, puts the individual on notice that they did something, wittingly or unwittingly that made someone uncomfortable. But secondly, it also creates a foundation for respect. Are things going to be awkward for a couple of days? Maybe. But at the end of the day, folks are going to respect the fact that you stood up and you said, listen, this isn't comfortable. It's not good for me. It's not good for the environment. So let's find a better path forward that works for everyone. So I certainly say, Prab, I say, let's address it. And the more that we address it, the sooner that we address it, then the quicker we can have a positive impact on the work environment. Thank you for that question.
Do we have any more questions? Okay, I don't see any further questions in the Q&A box. Thank you again so much, everyone, for attending. Thank you again, James, and have a wonderful day.
My pleasure. Take care, everybody. Stay safe.